Bartenders of Reddit. What is the weirdest thing you have ever witnessed at your job? Story 1. I worked at the bar in a restaurant, but would sometimes act as the host if things got busy on the floor. A couple came in once. I sat them down and gave them menus and all that. Not 10 minutes in, I pick up a call, and it's a woman asking to speak to the guy. I politely let him know someone's on the phone and they say it's urgent. He has a quick chat, seems okay, and hangs up the phone before going back to the table. 5 minutes later, she calls again. I go over again, apologize, and say they seem really concerned. At this point, he's clearly tense and making an effort not to raise his voice. After a few minutes, he hangs up, hands the phone back to me, and says, "If she calls again, just tell her I'm not interested in speaking to her." Lo and behold, she calls again, and I say exactly what he asked, to which she laughs in kind of a cliche crazy ex kind of way, and I shit you not, says, "Well, tell him I hope he doesn't eat too much because when he finds the tires I slashed, he'll be walking home, wishing he'd spoken to me," and hangs up. I went over a minute later and asked what kind of car he had because there was someone double parked outside and wanted to check that it wasn't him. I figured it wasn't worth freaking him out if it was an idle threat. He described the car and said where he'd parked it. I took a cigarette break and went to check. All 4 tires were fine, but that poor bugger had not a single window left unsmashed or severely cracked, and there were a couple of rocks laying on the ground. Needless to say, they did not stay to finish their meal. Story 2. A pretty dodgy woman came into the pokies room in our venue, slot machine equivalent that we have in Australia, and demanded for us to find an outlet for her to plug in her charger for her phone. So we found her a machine near an outlet and left her to her devices. Later, one of our staff was waved down by another stressed patron who said that a woman was moaning in the pokies room. Went in to find out she'd actually plugged in a and was going to town on herself in front of everyone. Story 3. Used to have a regular who sold her time on Backpage. She loved our queso, so she always had the guys bring her there. What stuck out was that she always ordered Jägermeister and Diet Coke in the same glass. I once had to kick her out because she got so wasted she was giving a job under one of our tables. When I could clearly see the in her mouth, she lies about what she's doing and says she's looking for something. Story 4. Former bartender here. Worked at a serious dive for 5 long years. Once a crack addict covered in prison tattoos explained to me why it's better to shoot heroin into your penis than into your neck. I'm a woman. No penis to shoot heroin into here. He was actually kind of a good dude in his own way. He taught me how to stop people who were smoking crack in the bathroom without having it to get rough for me. The trick was politely yelling from the hall to the washroom, "Hi, I know you're smoking crack in there, but if you could please leave, I won't call the cops. Thank you." And honestly, it worked like a charm. I also once served a very large woman with some pretty decent stubble and her man friend, who was cross-eyed and kinda smells like pee. They were sitting at a booth at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and she was taking job shots, which are topped with whipped cream, and you're not supposed to use your hands to drink. Each time I brought her one, she lifted her breasts one by one and placed them on the table so that she could lean over them to reach the shot glass on the table with her mouth. By shot number 3 or 4, she had whipped cream in her whiskers, and her man friend was leaning across the table to stroke her face and say, "I fucking love you." Honestly, I actually think the moral of that story is that there's someone for everyone, and that's kinda sweet. I have more stories about McPrison tats and tons of stories about that bar in general. It was deeply, deeply unsafe, but also kind of a gig I loved, and I met some people I still consider my closest friends. Story 5. Lots of funny things at New Year's when everyone is in fancy dresses, and sad older guys who have drank so much that they haven't noticed their wig has slipped. The weirdest is definitely having a mariachi band burst in through the door of the pub, play 2 songs, and leave. Keep in mind, this is the UK. It was a dark, rainy midweek night. I don't know where they came from or where they went after, but while they played, they had the attention of everyone in the pub. Story 6. Buck kid, maybe 5 to 6 years old, came in. Reactions ranged from WTF to laughter to attempts to help. Kid went straight to this lady, an every night regular, who turned out to be his mom. Apparently, he hid in her car and she was too zonked on various substances to notice. Kid was because he had literally nothing to wear, I later learned, and their duplex apartment a few blocks away was a vermin-infested hellhole. Mom was a serious addict. Her kid following her to the bar was the impetus that led to him being taken away and her getting sent to rehab. I learned all of this after the fact, but the kid walking naked into the bar was definitely among the most unexpected things I've ever seen. That's really sad. I did the same to my mom at a church outing when I was maybe 3 or 4. We had been playing in the water. I was alone in a room to change into something dry when I decided, completely naked, that I needed to ask my mom something. So I went searching for my mom, stark at the church picnic. Story 7. I once served Catman in Bloody Mary. Dude had body modifications that were hard not to stare at. He was very friendly. He ordered a blue rare steak and returned it for being overcooked. I told him we can't legally feed you anything more raw than a blue rare steak. He hissed and ordered another drink. Story 9. A heavyset Middle Eastern man was drinking heavily and got very drunk at my bar. When he went to the restroom, his prime rib dinner had arrived. I think he shot up some smack in the stall because when he came back, he was very high. He then cut a long, big strip of prime rib, about the size of a thick hot dog. Then, while glaring at me, threw his head back and proceeded to swallow it whole like a baby bird would a worm for its mother. It, of course, got stuck in his throat, choking him, and he passed out and fell on the floor. We cleaned out his air passage and gave him CPR. 10 minutes passed, and he was still unconscious when the paramedics arrived. He left with a heartbeat, but died later that night in the hospital. I was chuckling, picturing him swallowing it, and then took a dark turn. I'm so sorry you had to see that. Story 11. So we had this one guy that would dance in such strange ways right at the in front of our very small stage. He would flop down on the ground, face up, and then gyrate his hips up into the air over and over and over. It's an exercise move, I think. Maybe the bridge? Supposedly was a professor at the local university. Really tiny guy with a thick, unknown accent, ambiguous ethnicity, and crazy curly hair. One night, I was off work and went to a show at another local bar, and there he was, dancing. I was in the cups and said to myself, went up to dance with him. I'm a chick, for reference, and since he's so bizarre and I was dancing stupidly too, we soon had a small dance circle around us. I knew it was coming, and sure enough, he flopped to the ground and started his signature gyrating hip move. I maneuvered around and started dropping my onto his face. You know the move. He tried to get up, but I just kept jumping up and then dropping down on his face again. People were going wild. He loved it. Easily one of the top 10 moments of my life. Story 12. Car plowed into the bar I was working in, coming all the way in and flipping a pool table on its side. Pinned 3 off-duty Applebee's waitresses against the bar. No one was hurt, thankfully, and the woman who was driving tried to order a drink. Story 13. I once witnessed a woman openly fondling herself, dress hiked up, underwear pulled aside, in the middle of a not super busy bar. It was very obvious she wanted people to see. The weird part was, after a barback yelled at her and told her to stop or get out, a guy walked up to the bar and said, "Don't talk to my wife like that." This really happened. Seems like an exhibitionism voyeurism type of deal, with the wife being the former and the husband being the latter. Story 14. Gordon Ramsay walked in, ordered a half-sized margarita, and told me it was perfect after he finished it. He was a gentleman and even bowed and said thank you on the way out. I later learned they were filming an episode of Kitchen Nightmares around the corner, and he knew the chef who owned the restaurant where I was bartending. He came in the next night too. I had a conversation with Gordon Ramsay 2 days in a row. Story 15. This happened on my first Friday night. There were 2 French women in their mid to late 20s having a good night. Very chatty to the staff, even though it was busy, but that was quite nice and refreshing for a busy night. This one large sweaty guy makes his way to the bar and orders a drink while standing between these 2 women. As he overhears their accent, he asks, "Are you 2 French?" The ladies reply politely and continue talking between them. This guy pulls down his pants all the way to his ankles and says, "In that case, welcome to Scotland, baby," while making solid eye contact with me, looking for approval. At this point, one of the girls grabs the guy's dick and starts pulling him out of the pub like he's a disobedient dog, and the pure look of regret and embarrassment on this guy's face was priceless. She was really pulling with all her force, and the guy was just trying to stay in one piece. The other girl finished her drinks, tipped us all very well, thanked us for a great night, and swiftly left. As she opened the door, I heard a faint yell of, "But it was funny, right?" Story 16. Used to bartend at a strip club, so I definitely saw some weird things. The ones that stick out the most post include bartending in VIP and a guy refused to pay the girls for the hours. The VIP host, who was also a former fighter, asks the guy to pay. Guy gets belligerent, calls him a slur, and spits in the host's face. Host hits him once, KO. The guest comes to, stands up, and spits at everyone and is escorted out. Dancers brought the teeth they found to me at the bar. Not sure what I was supposed to do with them. Watched as one unique dancer, who typically communicated via meows, slowly sipped her drink as a guest licked and smelled her armpit. Served Dennis Rodman a shot of Jägermeister, only for him to walk away from the bar as though he didn't have to pay. Chased him down, and a dancer paid for it instead. Well, the teeth you can make into a necklace, and the next time someone doesn't pay, you can point to it and say, "You don't want to end up like this guy." Story 17. It was a Tuesday night, and we were closing at midnight. A group of about 6 gentlemen came to my bar, seemingly intoxicated, but overall pretty friendly. Small talk revealed they are mostly from the Portland area and are here, undisclosed location near the Philadelphia area, for their best friend's wedding, tomorrow. The one guy asks for a shot of the most expensive tequila we have. That is Clase Azul Anejo at $150 a shot. He says, "I'll take it." So I run downstairs. This occurred on a rooftop bar. Grab the bottle and all the fancy stuff to go with it, perform my little presentation in front of him, and he grabs the snifter filled with $150 worth of our best tequila and says, "Okay, boys, circle up." Without missing a beat, as if it were choreographed, the 6 guys get in a circle and start flapping their arms, positioned like chicken wings from the chicken dance, crouch down, and start chirping like baby birds. Guy number 1 then takes the shot and it into guy number 2's mouth, guy number 2 into guy number 3's mouth, and so on until it reaches guy number 6, who receives and follows the now certainly warm and slimy shot like a f***ing champ. Found out afterward they were all on shrooms, but it was the coolest I've ever seen. Woulda computed the shot if I had the power. Hope those boys are doing well. Story 18. Worked at a bar right downtown on a very main street in a very open and visible setting. Middle-aged and wealthy-looking guy comes in, orders a pint. No problems. Gets the pint, walks back out the door, and is probably going to smoke or hang out outside. Whatever. Gets back into his car and immediately pulls it and drives off. He did it so fast and with such confidence like it was a Big Mac and we were McDonald's. Full pint in a glass. It was hilarious and weird. Story 19. When I went out to the smoking area to clear some glasses and checking intoxication, a big red flag that these 2 people that have had enough and needed to leave was this guy f***ing the girl he was hooking up with in the asshole. Now, I know what you're thinking. How would I see him actually slipping a finger in? Well, her was half out, and about 7 customers had their eyes popping out of their heads the whole time. This was also in the smokers area, which was out front of the pub and on the main road of the town I lived in. Story 20. I caught a guy off in the dart room one slow Tuesday night. It was my last call, and I was moving to the floor mats to mop behind the bar when I saw him, with his back to me, making a off motion in the dart room. I assumed he was making a gesture at someone like a joke or something, so I ignored it. Until I walk by again and he's still doing it. I walk up and there he is, hog out, totally hard, off, staring at the 2 couples of kids finishing their dart game. What the f***, dude? Was all I could think to say. He tried to hide his and replied, "I'm on a bunch of Molly, I'm sorry, I'm waiting for my girlfriend." I just threw my hands up and said, "You have 5 seconds to get the f*** out of this bar. I don't want to bounce a dude with a boner." He ran away. I walked up to the 2 couples and said, "Why didn't you tell me he was doing that?" They said they felt that he was being weird but didn't look over because he was making them feel uncomfortable. Unreal. I tell the story to everyone, and after describing his appearance, multiple people confirmed that he has done this at other places and gotten away with it. Fast forward a couple years and I'm working at a different bar. A customer is like, "Hey dude, some guy is in here with a boner." I look around the room and there he is, the guy, with a boner again. I just scream across the bar, "Get the out of here, guy," and he ran out. Bar patrons, if someone is making you uncomfortable or off in the bar, please alert the staff. Story 21. I was a bartender in New Zealand a few years back, and some dude attending a work function lit his own face on fire with a flaming shot. He lit it, then shot it, but poured a bunch of it on his face at the same time. Afterwards, he didn't want to go to the hospital. He wanted to keep partying, so I got him some burn cream from the kitchen. Every time he came back to the bar after that, the blisters forming on his face were bigger, juicier, and nastier. That story trumps another time when I came across a dude getting a in the corner of the balcony while I was packing up after we'd closed. I let them finish. Story 22. Not a bartender, but work at a place with a bar. This husband and wife sat at the bar when another man came in and demanded the woman get up and move. The husband defended his wife and said they got there first and there were other open chairs at the bar the stranger could sit at. The man proceeded to verbally threaten the couple's lives before pulling out a gun. My manager called the cops and informed the man that the cops would be there in less than a minute because they patrolled the shopping center constantly. So the man ran out the front door and tried to escape on foot, but police saw a man running with a gun in his hands out in public away from a restaurant where a man had just pulled a gun on someone and arrested him. My manager had to go with the police to the police station to identify the man and give a statement. It was the wildest thing that's ever happened to me at work. Story 23. The ice well could be reached on both the bar side and the cocktailer side. A nurse pulls a bar seat up next to it and puts her foot in it while bitching about how rough her shift was. I saw it happen and literally cussed her out. Like, the is your problem? It was a busy Saturday night, and now we had no ice well in the bar, and my barback had to stop what he was doing to drain and clean the well, and I just got buckets of ice and put them in the bar in the meantime, but they had to be refilled pretty regularly in comparison to the larger well, and now we had these buckets in our way. She tries to come in again like a month later, and I immediately recognized her and told her to off before I call the hospital she works at and let them know how she's deliberately putting her feet in a place that would contaminate everyone else's drinks. She tried to yell at me, saying that was slander. I said the cameras would prove otherwise. I quit there some months later, and my old barback got promoted to bartender. He texted me like 6 months after, saying she tried to come in again and he recognized her and let her come in, but then told all of her friends that were with her what happened.